Wow, great to see so many here, and such a great venue and food and everything. So thanks to Skandia for that. I just have a few super quick points, and then I'm going to leave the word to Johannes, who is going to talk about how Skandia made a bank apps with Flutter. And then we have a short showcase by Ebba, who is going to demonstrate Buzz, their app they built in Flutter, which is actually super cool. There are a few things more. A few meetups ago, I showcased or had the release event for ServerPod, and I can say we recorded that, and it has had 15,000 views so far on YouTube. So thank you for being there, and if you haven't seen it, you can go check that out. And we're still hiring a few kick-ass Dart developers, so talk with me if you want to work with us. Talking of Flutter developers, I thought we would do like a super quick survey. Could be fun. Just if you raise your hand if you're a Flutter developer. So that's like the majority. And you keep your hand up if you have an app up on the App Store. Okay, well that's quite a few, probably like 60% at least. Okay. Next, well, I'm just going to leave the word to Johannes, and then I'm going to say a few words at the end. Would ask you to see if you want to make a talk here or something like that. But I'm leaving it to you now.
Yes. Let's see, let's just turn this off first and put this here. And also take control of the big screen. Maybe. We'll see. Yes. Okay, so as Victor said, welcome to Skandia. A little bit about me. I'm Johannes. I work here, has been here for a bit more than 2 years. And we are building apps. I am part of the app team, and I'm going to talk to you about rebuilding an app in a new platform without telling the customers about it. And without customers knowing about it. And also called the 5 W's. The who, the what, the when, and the where. And why, yeah. So a little bit about me, just quickly. I've been doing Flutter in my spare time since 2017. And have been looking for jobs to be able to actually do it professionally. When jobs didn't arrive on my doorstep, I arrived at theirs. You obviously have 2 questions, or maybe actually don't, but you might have 2 burning questions. What are you guys doing here in a bank? And where's all the money? I mean, we are a bank, right? Unfortunately, there is no physical money. We are purely digital. So there's no use for robbing us. Okay, so what is this? Let's start by answering this with a little bit of trivia. Skandiabanken has been around since 1855. Or no, sorry, not Skandiabanken. Skandia has been around since 1855 as an insurance company. 1994, Skandiabanken was started as a subsidiary for this insurance company. We have roughly 1.8 million customers in both of these companies. And if we talk about the bank, we're depending on how you count, the eighth largest bank in Sweden. Just move this cursor. Okay, so the Skandia mobile application, what you see here on the screen. Back in 2013, I missed it here. Yeah, so this app was created, I believe, in 2010. Or not this particular app, it didn't look like this back then. In 2013, we won, or Skandia won, a prize for like the best and prettiest banking application in like Guldmobilen. And our current usage of the app that I showcase here is around 130,000 unique customers per month and 200,000 per year. So not too much, not too little. And speaking of the app itself, so functions, I mean, it's a banking application, so of course you have your like checking balance, like creating a payment, handling stocks, paying bills, transfer money, you know, the usual stuff, managing saving securities, and then of course, I mean, like savings account and so on. This part I tell you because we will go back to it a little bit later on. So, as you did see in the beginning, I talked about, or we said, rebuilding an app. Like, why would we build a new app? We had a perfectly functional app. Let's start with talking about the design. The design started to become outdated. It was a little bit difficult to improve it. If you wanted to change the theme or to change the design of the app, you had to like go into each and every screen and fix it there and then. Like if we wanted to update icons, there was like no good way to change colors, icons, rounded corners, like pixels, you know, in one central place. That's one part. Another part is that the Android app actually didn't have any design documents. The iOS did, but the Android app was made like, okay, looks good, let's do it like this. Somewhat like the iOS application, not 100%. And then talking about the code base. I mean, there were bugs. I mean, it's an app, of course there's bugs. But trying to fix these bugs became increasingly more difficult. Stuff like, it was difficult to navigate through the code. Stuff was happening here and then it was arrived here. You didn't know exactly what you were getting and from where. So that part is like, it feels like Peter Griffin, right? I guess you've seen this before. It felt just like this. And then talking about the platforms, I mean, the sync between the platforms, sure, you could argue that they should have different designs, but it doesn't have to be. Especially if you don't have a design document that tells you this is what's different for Android versus for iOS. And the two platforms were not always in sync in regards to logic as well. So there were bugs in one platform that didn't exist in the other one. And then we got customer calls telling us that, okay, this was broken in the app. We started looking in the wrong app, of course. So how was this received by customers then? Not too good. So something had to be done. Let's look at the timeline and look back a little bit. So back in 2010 until 2020, the app was outsourced. So, I mean, for good and bad, I mean, it did earn like best mobile bank. It did get new design. It did get updates. But it was more and more difficult to actually get the right thing done in the right time for the right amount of money. So we needed to look at that a bit as well. Of course, this particular part I didn't really know too much about. I didn't work here back then. I started here, December 1st, 2020. I was hired because we needed to staff up the Android part. We did have iOS developer or developers, depending on how you count it. But we needed to staff up and kind of take a look at what we had in the app and like do something with what we had, trying to move away from the outsourcing to Skandia takes over the app development from outsourcing. So I started after we did actually take the code base over. So now let's forget about the past and actually talk about the interesting part and how we made that work. So during 2020, there was a lot of, well, it should have been 2021, sorry. During 2021, there was a lot of discussions regarding what to do with the app. Should we keep the old? Should we try to update it? Should we rebuild? Should we try a hybrid approach? Should we? It was super difficult. And on the second half of 2021, we did actually come to a conclusion. Let's rebuild the app in a new platform. So let's talk about how the process went and how we actually got there. No? Okay. So let's start from my personal point of view. That's the one I know best, of course. Seeing as I really loved Flutter and actually wanted Flutter, I actually wanted to work with Flutter as a platform. This commit, as you see, was made December 9th, 2020. I started December 1st, so this is just 9 days after. So even then I had started scheming and like just to show how quickly I could move forward with recreating the design, almost recreating the design we had, with starting to put some functionality in there to try to get people to understand that this is actually a platform that is viable for the future, or at least according to me. And this particular one is just a simple screen. What does it say? Initial setup with hacked together homepage. I mean, tells it all. But it was at least a start. So what did this lead to then? Okay, it led to a lot of discussions. These two nice fellas here are architects. At least one of them used to be software architect. Now he's like, I don't remember what it's called, but higher up architect. Sitting in meetings, everything. I'm also architect nowadays, so I also sit in a lot of meetings. But they needed to defend my point of view and to explain to the other architects why Flutter would be a viable option. So it was a long, it was, at least to me, a long process to get to pick a platform and how to implement it cost effective, but still in a proper way. To properly evaluate the platforms that we picked between, we did a few prototypes, proof of concepts, with the platforms we chose to look at, and we took a look at how difficult it would be to improve on, and how easy it would be to write, how much you could change the UI later, and so on. And this was the Flutter version. So this is basically a very much mock-up of the old Android application, but made in Flutter as part of this process, together with a team. We do at least have one developer who worked with me with this. So this particular thing is update your contact information, a function that we actually never implemented, interestingly enough. But that was what we aimed to look at, because that was something that we thought we needed, and maybe still do. Okay, so which platforms did we actually take a look at? So let's start with the ones we don't really care about. I mean, how much do you know of Cordova, Ionic, or .NET MAUI? And if you know about it, would you want to work with it? I don't know. They just weren't up to snuff. Okay, let's continue. So let's look at React Native. I mean, we do have a lot of React developers in this building working on at least one of these floors. However, they are not app developers. So trying to debug an application built with this like hybrid approach of like JavaScript or TypeScript, combined with some kind of native where the views are native and everything is, it's just difficult. And as an app developer, I very much did not want to work with JavaScript or TypeScript. So that was not really the chosen platform. We didn't even make a proof of concept with that. Okay, so let's talk about this one. I mean, this is web. And this might require some kind of explanation. So here at Skandia, we have like most of the pages, or a lot of the pages we do have, or web pages, that is, are built like separately in small containers and could potentially be containerized in like different views in your app to navigate between and like create everything in pure web. However, there is a few, we did proof of concept this, but there is a few setbacks at this. The design of the app would not necessarily be synced between the pages because it's different teams working on different pages with different versions of the UI, like the UI library that we use. Native functionalities such as scanning, I don't think even would work if we wanted to. And most notably, Apple would probably not even accept this because they do not like wrapped web pages, or like wrapped web pages in an app, in App Store. So out of the question. So let's talk about native then. I mean, we did have a native, or like two native apps, and Jetpack Compose and Swift UI was there. It was possible to start working with it. So we proof of concept, of course, working with Jetpack Compose in Android and Swift UI for iOS. But this would probably most likely lead to us rebuilding the app piece by piece and not actually rebuilding it from scratch, which means that we still would have the same old application with potentially not really working functionality and just difficult to get around. So thankfully, Jonas and Omid, the ones in the slides previously, they might have some more insight to this, but from my perspective, they fought hard for. In the end, they fought hard for not this to not be the platform. And for me, the reason why these lost was, I mean, same as mentioned in an earlier slide, keeping platform in sync. Design, I mean, still two platforms, two code bases, keeping design in sync. Logic or functionality, also same there, maybe not necessarily in sync. And obviously the cost, because that would require us to have two different teams with two different platforms that could not work on one code base that works in all platforms. So for me, that left is Flutter, of course. Which, whoa! Which is obviously the platform I was pushing and voting for. I mean, to us at Skandia, most of you, or maybe all of you, know basically what Flutter is. But to us at Skandia, what Flutter actually is and gives us is no. Let's actually save that for later. But there were a few doubts at least. So it was quite a new framework. I mean, maybe wouldn't be maintained. It's maybe not battle tested enough. It's made by Google, and we all know what Google Graveyard is. It's a big company with big resources, so it's a double-edged sword, of course. And is there even developers working with it? I mean, obviously there is, but we didn't know. So we did this. In the end, we decided to only do one of the platforms for a few reasons. We decided to just run with Android at first. I mean, partly because I used to be an Android developer, but also because that code base made it possible for us to integrate Flutter inside the app, which we actually, spoiler, didn't actually do in the end anyways. Now let's talk about what Flutter is to us. As a bank, as an insurance company here in Sweden. So to us, it's cost effective. I mean, 2 developers become 1. We can create apps for both platforms with just like half the developers, essentially, more or less. Correctness, I call this. Where like the pixels you see on the screen are the pixels you see on the screen, no matter the platform. It's just, I mean, kind of magic, but it's not up to us. It's built this way. The godsend hot reload is super awesome. It makes it much quicker to iterate. We can, and in the future, if stars align, we can maybe introduce new platforms. At least I hope so, because that would be quite cool. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how we build the app. Hello? Okay, there we go. So how we build the app, how we set it up, how our code base is structured without actually looking at any code. So if you were here to see code, I'm sorry, I'm not going to show you too much code today. This is like a top-down perspective of how we built everything. But if you want to know more in details, I mean, a lot of us, or a lot of my teammates are here and could potentially answer your questions when we are done with our talks here. So here, what you see here is Skandia Flutter. It's our main application, the application that's actually going out to the customers. We have the gallery, which is our way to display the widgets we use, that we create and use, what colors we have, the fonts, the icons, everything is stored in there for us to easily just go back and look at in a quite nice interactive way. I'll show a slide of that a little bit later. And to separate the functionality, separate out functionality, we have the sub packages. So like OCR scanner for scanning, you have like quick functions for our native parts that actually required, because we have like home screen widgets with quick balance and so on. Assets is its own package. Components like core, everything. I mean, it's separated into smaller packages. Not super separated, but I mean, there's at least some way of separating them out to make it easier to understand what's going on in our code base. Then we also have like separate packages that is not part of this whole thing. We have like screenshot tests. So everything we create, or all widgets we create, we require to have screenshot tests. And we have an example application, or a few example applications, but most notably like the OCR scanner has its own example application to not have to build the whole thing, navigate to payment and so on. It's just there. You can open it and run if you want to. Hello? There we go. Okay, so how do we build the app? What's the kind of packages we use? what's the code style? I'm not going to talk too much about the code style itself, but these are, at least to me, maybe the most interesting packages. So to handle the multiple repository or multiple packages, we use Melos. We have Freezed for like data classes. We use Dio for HTTP requests. Beamer for navigation. Maybe will be or probably will be exchanged with GoRouter eventually. Slang, formerly known as FastI18N. Slang is much easier to say. So thank you for changing the name. It's for locale, changing, like handling texts in the correct language. And then we have Dashbook, which is the package we use for the gallery app. And of course, the burning question you all have is, what state management solution do we have? Oh, okay. Riverpod. So we, or maybe I, settled for Riverpod very early on, because it felt like the future, and I still think it is. And then just to quickly show you the process we use for building the app, like in CLI, no, not CLI, for build servers. So this is it. We have an easy to use, like just run this packet or run this this build, selecting the target if you want it in a dev build, if you want it in a prod build, if you want it to be released, or not all the way to Play Store, but like released out so we can start testing it. And then we actually have the pipeline itself, which is like everything is parallelized to make it quicker to run, even though, like, say the test goldens would fail. In a sense, it might be waste of resources to run all of those in parallel. If just one test fails, why do we even try to build the full application? It's to save time. I mean, who am I kidding? Okay. Let's talk about Assist. So as you have heard in the beginning of the presentation, we have quite some application to convert to Flutter without specification, functionality, or design. But thanks to the eminent tester Petrus, he made. He made sure that we kept on track, that we developed the application that we already had out there, but in a new platform, looking at stuff like, for example, payment flow, stock purchase flow, transaction list. Everything should look and feel more or less almost the exact same as the old application did, even though it was a totally new application. We called this as is because everything should be as is when we developed it. And the more we worked on it, the more we talked about it, as is started to become as is, because it's more fun this way. So why we decided to rebuild the application in the old design and not design the whole application from, or like redesigning the application when we had the opportunity to. There's like it's got a few different reasons, but the most notable reason, at least in hindsight, is that we could focus on one thing and one thing only: recreate the exact same functionality as we did. That we expected. We knew what we expected. We didn't recreate a new flow. We didn't recreate new pixels. It's just there. It's the same thing. So speaking of assist, what did we developers do to more easily recreate the application and make this transition easier? So this is one of the ways. I talked a little bit about the components library, or like design library. So this is where everything design is stored. We don't allow for importing material in our application, nor Cupertino. If we want widgets from material or Cupertino, we export them from here with a so-called barrel export. So we make sure that only the things we allow for in the app are there, and we can make sure that these things are actually kept in sync with what we expect, even going forward. And if you need to use, I told you, if you need to use a material widget, you just export it out and start use it. Sometimes we wrap it because we need some different kind of functionality, but that's fine as well. And we also have a rule that every time we create a new widget in here, it should be screenshot tested or golden tested. So this is a golden test screenshot from the card that we have in the app. Funnily enough, this is actually almost pure Dart. The only thing that is not is the Visa logo and the Skandia logo. Everything else is text or purely created in Flutter with painting it. With this golden test, we can make sure that if we update it, we get to know about it, and we can either approve or not approve the change, and make sure that it stays the same in the future as well. Here is the gallery. So speaking of pixels, if you want to see what we support, what widget we support, what colors we support, what fonts we support, everything, it should be in here. So you could just look at what does a loader look like, what is a radio button, what is a slider, what is colors, what is the whole application. I'm not actually going to show you that, but you might get to see it out on the floor if you ask nicely. In here, in this gallery application, we can toggle between dark mode and light mode. Currently, this is, I only took a screenshot of the dark mode, but we could if we wanted to. We can change text scaling, we can change like different device sizes if we want to, so we can see how the widgets actually fare in all the different conditions we feel like we need to support. And then continuing more on the same note, we all use, or all, but I mean, we use different setups for how we build the application. Do we run it on a physical device? Do we run it on an emulator, simulator? Do we run it on desktop? Yes, is the answer. We actually run all of them. The only one that we might not actually run currently is web. But web, on the other hand, is not as easy to iterate upon when you use with Flutter. So these ones are the preferred ones, at least as of now. This allowed us for look at the application in different settings, different environments. Running it in desktop allowed us to scale the application up and down to see how it just would look like, and maybe even adding some quality of life improvements. This is something I thought looked nice with like a side menu when the application is wider than like a set of pixels. So I just added it. So technically we do have support for this. So if you run the Skandia application in a tablet, it would look somewhat like the desktop application here, just for fun. All right. A little bit more about how we build the application. This lightning bulb is to show you that we have what we call innovation sprint. Every 6 sprints we have innovation sprint. It's a little bit like Google design, no, Google the 20% projects, or like day of new idea. It's a whole sprint, every 6 sprints. And during this innovation, we get to try out new stuff, find ways to improve the workflow, try to see if there's anything we can do to just improve the quality of life for us, anything. And I'll show you 2 of these. that actually that we use quite a lot, or yeah, in one way or another. That the first one I think helped immensely for like when we actually picked the platform, and the second one dramatically helps us when we try to debug the application, when we try to see what is what and why stuff doesn't work. So, how we build the app? First generation of scanning. So this was actually way before we started looking at the proof of concepts, because I wanted to see how difficult would it be to create the probably most difficult part of the app, like scanning, OCR scanning. And I mean, it wasn't too hard, to be honest. I only needed, I only needed an isolate to crop the image. Now we have actually moved away from that, but an isolate to crop the image, move the image to native, scan it in native, return the result. That's it. Not too difficult, but the next release of the app will actually be much more simple for us as developers, at least. This was a fully functional, like the example app, fully functional as well. So as you can see, it did actually scan the amount from my invoice. And this is the actually the first so-called generation of payment flow. This, of course, never was released to the public, but this was my first, without UX experience, attempt. Prosit. My first attempt at just try to create something that included everything and also had the scanner. So if you like click the camera button up there, it like toggled the camera up and down, or like what's it called? Like collapsed the camera. You could scan invoice, it could fill the fields for you and everything, just because I could. I mean, you could never actually send the payment anywhere. You just filled it out for fun. It was just a form without actual backend. But it was quite easy to get this done as well. At least that's what I think. Okay, so here's the second one. So this is something that Rickard over there created when he was frustrated with not actually knowing what endpoint, what calls from to the endpoints were like borking everything up when he, what was it? Funds, yeah. So trying to implement funds, yeah, good old times. So I've scrambled the API calls for you, so don't try to call this. It's not going to work. But you could see like the API calls being done. You could see the responses. For fun, I added like if you go into the call and look at the information, if you click the response code, you actually go to http.cat and see the like cat version of what the response was. It's like this has been super helpful for us because it shows everything from like navigation to HTTP calls to crashes that are unhandled or exceptions that are unhandled with their stack trace and everything. And the mail icon sends everything to Rickard. It actually does still. Yeah, so this has helped us out very much. Okay, so taking a step back and answer this. So why again did we do this? This is why. So what you see on the left is the old applications like Android and iOS. And on the right, you see the Flutter application and then the iOS application that we actually didn't update. Because we decided that we want to do one platform at a time. So we could focus on getting that platform to work perfectly and not having to implement two designs And we wanted, I mean, if we wanted to, when we wanted to rethink how the app would look, we wanted to be able to do it better, not just make 2 applications for the hell of it. So that's why. Okay, so now we're back at the timeline. So when will we release the application to you so you could try it if you're an Android Skandia customer? You actually are using it already. We have been out in production since September, October last year. And this is the update that we never told anyone about. It's just another update, you know. And sure, I mean, of course, we got some regression. It's regression as like it was a whole new application, but some bugs were found by customers, by us. We fixed it, but thankfully the code base was actually at least very easy to work with, so we could fix them rapidly. And so what happened then? Let's zoom in a little bit further. I might have somewhat alluded to this before, but now we actually started looking at the new design, or rather, we were in the background looking at the pixels of the new design, the colors, everything behind the scenes for about half a year before we actually started working on the new design. But oh yeah, and the parts of the reason why we didn't actually update to the new design to begin with, even though we had started the work earlier, was because partly we wanted to be able to actually get an app out to the customers. I mean, as I said before, if we tried to rebuild the application and the UX and the UI, it would never be done, right? Or at least not yet. And partly because the design wasn't fully finalized. We were still in discussions in how the design should work, how this should look, when we really started like ramping up the development team and started working with the old design. And in hindsight, as I also said before, I think it was the correct way of going about, because then we could actually get the app out to the customers, trying to battle test it, and so far I think it's just been working fine. How did the transition to the new design work out? Or rather, maybe how does it look? So this is a visualization of the timeline. First you have the old application, then you have the Flutter, and then you have the new Flutter design. It's a little bit less colory. It's a little bit more buttoned up, so to say. But I mean, it's new design. It feels good. It feels right. And also, of course, there's support for dark mode. So to explain how we actually achieved this whole redesign, let's have a look at this. This is how we work with UX. So we have Figma. The UX people, they go in there and then they push the buttons and create beautiful UX, because that's how it's done, right? And then we all jump in there, asking questions, writing comments, saying, no, this is definitely not how it should work. No, we can't do this because we don't have the data, everything like that. How should we handle error cases? We have an open discussion in Figma. But not only Figma, we also have a UX channel in Teams, where we basically have the same type of conversation, but more conversational-like, so to say. So between these, we just iterate until we feel like we have a product we can be proud of creating and confident that it should work. So that's how we did it. Very loosely described. Demo time. Anyone wants to see the app? Yes. Let's see if I can get this to work though. No, wrong. Oh, would you look at that? Super small. So what you see on the right. Tobias, did you fix this? No. Let's pick Andreas Håkansson, a test customer of ours, our favorite one. So let's log in as Andreas Håkansson and see if it works. And I see that the macOS application I built was apparently not dev build, it was a production build, so it's not going to work. No, that is purely my fault. Yeah. Let's see. At this time of day, the backend is going to bed, so that's why it's so slow. So we just had to wake it up a bit. But so this is the application. So this is like you go to your accounts, you can see all your transactions, you can see more information about the transactions. You have like your upcoming payments. This guy might be in a lot of debt, I don't know. So let's actually fix this. Yes, there we go, perfect. Now he saved some money. Payments to approve, like you approve your payments. Let's actually not do that either. Like you have your savings, and this is like your main page. If you are using the Skandiabanken application today, which I believe at least a few of you are, it's not too unfamiliar, but it's new colors, new design. Payment has been redone, so you pick your from account. You can then start scanning people and see if they are no, okay. And like this is like all of the flows, all of the screens are kind of rewritten from scratch, but kind of not. Some of the flows, like this in particular, was actually basically rewritten from scratch, looking at the old code to make the functionality the same, but with a different UX. Some of the screens were actually more or less just swap out our old package from the design package with the new one we created, which and then we just took the bugs where we got them. So we had two design packages for a while. So it was looking like what's it called? Frankenstein's monster, you know? It's like old design mixed with new design. Didn't really work out. Okay, so let's have a look at if I can find dark mode. No, this is not set up for dark mode. That is your fault, Tobias. Let's see if we can dark mode. Yes, this is so much more pretty. Dark mode. There we go. And there we go. So we got dark mode. Yay! I mean, so you have accounts, you have cards. It's like it's pretty. Even if you have cards, this guy doesn't. Savings, you can like ask us from the app team, and then actually get to play with it yourself because it's nice. I'm super proud of what we did, and that's like a quick recap of what we did. So just not trying to log in because that's, as I said, not going to work. But like this is how personally I work. I use like the window application in macOS because that means I can rescale it to be the smallest clock to the biggest, I don't know, this screen, like so, if you wanted to. Oh, and then I moved it, yeah. Okay. So back to the presentation a little bit and move this out of the way. Hello? There we go. Okay, so what's now? What's next? For us in the app team. So there's a lot to improve, of course, still. So we are trying to figure out the parts that we want to or that we feel would give the most to the customer and us to actually improve in the proper way. And this sometimes leads to us not actually having the data we need. So that's why we need the backend team. So we are not only front-end developers in this team, we are also backend developers. We are like product owners, we have UX, UI, everything that we need at our disposal. So thankfully we are doing like a big work to rebuild the backend in a nice way, or our backend in a nice way, so we actually can talk with whatever functions we need from the backend in a good and easily achievable way. And the long-term goal is actually to try to strip away some logic from the app, try to make the app as dumb as possible, I guess, with the backend being more of what tells the app, okay, so this is the text you should display in this particular place, and so on. So dumbing down the app as much as we can. And of course, we also want to finish off the last iOS pieces, so we can start shipping that out to customers as well. And of course, now we can start working on new functionality. I mean, such as prettier and more interactive graphs, push notifications, in-app messages, chat with customer support, and so on. When will the redesign be available? Let's go back to the timeline just a little bit to reveal the last part. So soon, very soon, we hope. So if you are an Android customer, you will get it in the coming weeks, we guess. At least if you're an open beta tester. So try to be that if you want to try this out. For iOS, very soon after. So not really yet, but probably very soon after. So if you want to join the beta, scan this QR code with your Android phone, and you will be added to the open beta channel, so you get all the new functionality before everyone else. And as I said, as you understand, we don't have a QR code for iOS because, I mean, it's not really there yet. But soon, very soon after. So now I actually want to thank all my colleagues. So because I could definitely not have been doing this all by myself. So if all of you would like to stand up, and then everyone else can give a hand. So if you look at these guys and gals, maybe, not sure if any of the gals are here. Okay, there we go, perfect. So take a look at them, and you can ask maybe any of us, or at least we can guide you to someone that can actually show you the application, and so you can try it out for yourself. And everyone else, thank you for joining as well. Also, one more thing, we are hiring. So if unfortunately, we can only take applicants that at least understand Swedish, but if you do understand Swedish, please don't shy away from mail to me, and I will make sure to deliver it forward. Thank you all for attending. Ska vi köra Q&A eller ska vi köra? Yeah. So let's do a Q&A. Who wants to run around with the microphones? Everyone wants.
Oh, we only have one.
Yes.
Okay.
So one. So, yeah. Take it away. Anyone with a question?
Oh, this is gonna be a workout.
Yes.
there are 2 microphones,
Okay.
one for the stream.
Yes, I was just wondering regarding iPhone,
Yeah.
if there was any specific things that you've noticed that you need to make specific implementation for. That you can't just use the same code as for Android.
Yeah, it's the same functionality as we, so to say, lack for the Android implementation as well, like the scanning, or at least used to be, the quick functions that we need because we want the home screen widget and so on. So stuff like this needs to be implemented natively with a bridge to Flutter. In regards to like design and functionality inside the app, there is, as far as I know, no differences between the 2 platforms.
Only the stupid keyboard.
Oh yeah, okay, but that's like native stuff. But you're right, only the stupid keyboard. Lucas has been struggling. Be kind and annoying, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you for a great presentation. When you published to the Play Store, were there any bumps in the road, or was it just CSS replacing the APK to the new one?
In regards to actually update, like the first updates, no, they're just an update of the, in this case, app bundle, but yeah, the APK in the end. But I mean, then of course there's like new regulations, like you have to approve. So some at one release it just didn't release. So apparently that didn't have anything to do with the release itself. It turned out it was just that we had missed, like we had to check. Yeah, this is fine. This is how you do a test login and so on. But no, in regards to just updating, no, it was no issues. We used as long as you use the same sign-in key, it was just smooth sailing.
But it was also like the part why we first went with the functionality first and the old design, and not with the new design as well. Trying to keep the dependency as low as possible, so it's not too many things are new, I would say.
Yeah.
Here, when you looked at different frameworks, considering your bank, what were your take on the security around the choice of framework?
Yeah, we obviously did take what's it called? Like when you we did have people looking at the platform itself and trying to pen test the whole first iteration of the platform to make sure it did live up to the standards. And fun fact, apparently Dart the IO package, has certificate transparency built in, so we didn't even have to look at that, which was super nice. So it was just delivered to us at the doorstep.
Like a quick follow-up, maybe you already answered, but you didn't do any adjustments or anything. It's Flutter out of the box.
Yeah.
You didn't have to care about the security at all.
No, as long as you think about what you expose in regards to like strings, so you don't deliver an application where you can extract like debug strings. Flutter or Dart is super good at tree shaking those away if you just make sure that it's a constant. So stuff like that you have to keep in mind. Apart from that, it's like mostly just good to go.
Cool, thanks.
And we have also had pen testers testing it afterwards.
Yeah.
Hi there. I noticed you had 22 people on your team. What's your rough budget, and what are the titles of those 22 people? Do you know them?
I can't tell you anything about budget, but the titles of those people. So we have Scrum Master, we have Product Owner, we have Backend Developer, we have UX, we have Tester, and we have Flutter developers, and then we have two of us who are developers and also software architects.
Hi, thank you for a great presentation. Appreciate that. Quick question. We use a lot of external packages. Now the DO is out. I don't know if you're using DO or HTTP. Do you have any backup plan to change from DO to some other client?
DO is back.
DO
is it back now? Oh, sorry. Today? I mean,
no, just like 2 days ago.
2 days ago. Oh, that's good to know then.
It's not the same developers though. It's the developers of DOX, which was like a fork, but they got into and like they are the new maintainers of the DO package.
Okay. And regarding the end-to-end testing, have you used any like Flutter APM or something? Like I don't know if you have web views in your app, and that will be difficult to automate. So was there any automation you did for this?
We do not have web views in the app. In regards to testing itself, we use the headless widget testing for a few of the flows, not too many, but a few of the flows we do headless widget testing. No Appium, no like from the outside testing.
Yeah, like no end-to-end testing. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Hi. Did you notice any performance issues, or if there were any, how did you cope with them?
The only one in like talking about Android then of course, but the only one I know about so far is that a few of the really old devices became very chuggy, and unfortunately there's not too much we can do about it. So we just said, sorry, but this is the future, I guess. But for like your typical device, no, there were, as far as any of us could see, no performance issues. No.
I think he was first, right?
Hey, I wanted to ask you about the local data that you kept in the Android app, like shared preferences, databases. Like, how did you handle that migration? Were the users logged out? Old data was wiped, everything fetched again. How was that experience?
So first of all, we barely store anything on your device. The only thing we do store is your quick functions accounts. For that, I believe I tried to remember what we did, but I think we just said that they are not supported. So when you updated it, the old one, the old selected one was cleared, and then you got your new account that you had to set up again. But seeing as that's the only thing, and in the old app it didn't actually even really work most of the time anyways, so it was like for them no difference anyway.
When it was stored, and the package we use is Flutter Secure Preferences, so that uses the secured shared preferences on Android, and on iOS it's the keychain. So
Yeah.
that's how we prepare it.
And to reiterate for the online ones, it's for Android it's Flutter shared preferences, secure shared preferences, and iOS it's keychain. So it's should be securely stored, hopefully.
When you moved to Flutter, did you see any changes in the bundle size, or how much was the change in the bundle size?
Yes, I think initially the bundle size did increase by from what was it, like 28 megabytes to 40-ish. But we actually have been going down in bundle size since then. So we are closing up to the 28 again. Not really there, and I don't think we ever will get back there, but we are closing up. So I think we are a bit above 30, 35, maybe. I think so.
Thanks for a great presentation. Will we ever see a Flame game for reducing interest rates for your mortgage?
You can ask Lucas. He knows everything about Flame.
So for the ones who don't know me, I am the creator of Flame. It's been a lot of jokes about this, especially on the innovation sprints. And we actually have Jocke somewhere that actually created a Flame game in an innovation sprint. But yeah, maybe we'll do some Easter eggs sometime without telling the rest of the bank. Who knows?
It's easier to say sorry than ask.
Exactly.
I was wondering if you saw any change in how the app was received in the Play Store. And you just showed some metrics about ratings, for example. But did you have any change in that metric, or did you see any change in crashes, application not responding type of errors, or anything like that?
I'll start going back to forth. So application not responding and like crashes, they barely exist due to Flutter, thankfully. The response from the customers, I mean, it was a steady downward curve to begin with, so we just continued that because we rebuilt the application from scratch. However, hopefully the new design will actually get it to go up again. That's our intention, at least. Yeah, it might be time to continue on. Thank you all.
Bright lights. Hello.
Yeah.
Testing, testing. everyone. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Skandia and Flutter Stockholm. I'm Ebba, and I'm one of the founders of a company, or startup called Bus. So for those of you who haven't heard of Bus, we're building a productivity app for developers. And our focus is to speed up engineering teams by focusing on developers and helping you minimize context switching and also increasing visibility when it comes to PRs, both your own but also on a team level, so that you can ship faster. And I'll get to into this a bit more, but first, why am I here? So you'll be really surprised to hear that we're building Bus with Flutter. This was a decision that we took when we were building our web application, because we first of all started as a virtual office like 1.5 years ago. And it was actually Victor that built our first MVP. So he was definitely part of that decision. And if you've seen the keynote, the ServerPod keynote, you'll also know that we are building Bus with ServerPod in our backend. So we're actually using Dart across our entire tech stack, which is pretty cool. Now we took the decision to build with Flutter, as I said, when we were building our web platform or web application. And this was a virtual office with a lot of real-time communication. You can jump in and out of different video rooms and so on. And for that, we knew that we needed a really, really good design and like a flawless UX. It was all about the UX, right? We also knew that we'd probably have to be on multiple devices, work for both desktop and mobile, and we were building for web, but eventually we thought we'd probably also be a desktop app. So that was definitely a factor that we took into consideration. Reactivity, as I said, a lot of real-time communication. So all these three factors kind of led us into the Flutter track. And of course, we were working with Victor, so it would be total waste if we didn't take the opportunity to build with Flutter. So that's why we took this choice, or this decision. And after iterating on our first MVP, you know, in startups, you start here and then you end up in a different place when you start speaking more with your customers and understanding what product you should actually build. And so after a few iterations, we understood that we should be building this for developers. And when we did that, a few other requirements came into the picture. So we knew that we needed to build a software that was really easily accessible. You guys, I'm speaking to you as you are developers, want really easy access to the tool. It shouldn't feel like another platform you have to go into, right? We wanted to build this as a easy layer on top of everything. And the same goes for the screen size. We didn't want to take up a lot of screen real estate. And then we also knew we wanted to build custom notifications. So we actually went and took the decision to build a desktop app, and not just any desktop app, but a menu bar app. So we knew we had to move from Flutter Web to desktop. But considering we were a Flutter team and we also could reuse a lot of the code that we had already built, we stuck with Flutter. So that's how we came into the decision to use Flutter desktop. So not only do we use ServerPod and we're building Flutter for desktop, we also have quite a unique UX, which makes the entire thing a lot more interesting and tricky. What are we building? Well, I'm going to go into a demo here first to show you what the tool looks like and what it does, and then we're going to cover a few things that we've done to work around a few of the UX stuff. So with Bus, we want to help developers, as I said, save time and be more productive. And first and foremost, we want to reduce context switching. So, you know, all those notification overflows in Slack, if you're using Slack, from GitHub or Gmail or whatever you might be using, in order to stay up to date with your PRs or MRs or whatever you might refer to. You need to constantly go into different tools to get that information. But we thought that we could integrate with these tools and fetch that information for you and serve it to you in a lightweight widget with custom notifications. So in Buzz, when you open it, it kind of works like an automated to-do list, which fetches the information and sections it so that you can get a quick overview of the work that you have in progress, the meetings you have, as well as what other people in your team are doing. And then based on that overview, you can take the appropriate actions and actually get that work in progress through faster. That's the end goal. We want to minimize the cycle time, basically. And I'm actually going to show you what this looks like. Oh, perfect. So here's where it sits in my computer. I don't think I have the best Wi-Fi here now, but I'll show it to you here. I came prepared. So yeah, it looks like this. And that's the view I showed before. So basically you can click into any PR and go straight to GitHub, or you can click into any meeting and go straight there. So that's just minimizing your clicks. You also have this team view. And here you see what your team is up to. If they're in a huddle, if you're using Slack, we're really focused on the Slack and Google tech stack as of now, or communication stack. But you can also see, for how long your team is available. Like if you want to get help from your manager, it's just an easy way. You don't have to ask or go into calendar and search for people. You'll also see their schedule, but also their workload. So for example, if you're waiting for Alex to review your PR, but you see that he's really busy today, you can set your expectations. Or if you're just curious about what other people in your team are working on and want to check out their PRs, it's just a really easy way to navigate into these different tabs. Cool. Is it gonna work now? It was working before. Oh well, maybe later. Okay, back to this. Okay, so when building a desktop app with Flutter, window management can be really tricky because there's not really any recommended way by Flutter to manage windows. For example, there's no way to resize them programmatically or position them or reposition them and show multiple windows like we're doing. So for example, this is our main window, but we also have a second window for the settings, which takes up the entire screen. It's a big window. And then we also have notifications. And then on top of this, we also, the app also behaves differently depending on where you click. So if you click outside the app, you want to close it, etc., etc. So we can't just build everything into one window, which is maybe more common. So to cover all of this, we're using a package called Window Manager. It's a package by Lean Flutter, and it's a quite strong package. However, it's not really, working perfect out of the box. So we're modifying it by using channel methods or method channels. And in this one, for example, in this code snippet here, this is what we've done to handle what happens when you click outside the window. So for the main window, as I said, we want to close it. I believe you saw that when I opened and closed my app. But for our notifications, we want them to be more persistent and then close after a certain amount of time, or when you close it or join a meeting or click on your PR. So these notifications are basically Flutter widgets on top of a transparent background. So we've customized the default window that shows when you run a Flutter app so that it has a transparent background and then no borders. And this lets us modify the size, the background colors, the borders, and other parameters with Flutter. And the notifications are actually our most appreciated feature. So they also appear from the menu bar. And the idea here is that you can sit and code and basically get that little prompt and notification when your PR is approved or when your PR is merged or etc. not having to go into another tool to get that information, not having to search through, a lot of email notifications were similar. And then when you open the app again, that is listed here, and you can take action on it, basically. So we share, as I said, when you have a new review request, when your PR is merged, and we're going to also integrate with like Circle CI, etc., so that we can show if all the checks pass and so on. I don't know how I am with time, but another thing that we have that's different from Flutter Mobile and Desktop is that for mobile, Flutter uses an API that tells you when your app is getting killed, when it gets to put in the foreground and background, but this is not the case for Desktop, so we don't have that information. So for macOS, for example, with our app, we have a real-time connection to the socket connection with the server. And when the Mac app goes to sleep or you go offline, we lose that connection breaks. So we have had to work around that by listening to the sleep state of macOS and then waking the socket up. So this is something we've had to do to work around when building with for a desktop, and the same thing goes for social authentication. It's also something that we had to modify. We basically had to develop our own solution using deep links, which you can actually read about on our blog. So I'm working with a Flutter team of two really, really great guys, Bart and Raphael, and they have created a Flutter Crafts blog on our website. In this article, they go through social authentication, and they actually share a lot of code snippets. So they're very generous, and I would recommend you to check that out. They're going to be sharing even more of the things that I've mentioned and go into details about them. So that's a tip from me. They also actually guested on the Flying High with Flutter podcast, which I know Victor also guested in a few weeks back. So and they go into all these things as well, and it's a really nice and laid-back podcast about Flutter. So I recommend that. If you're interested in testing Buzz out, then I think you should do that. So it's super easy. We basically, all you have to do is download, then you sign in with Google. We only support Google at the moment. We're a startup, so a small team, but we'll get there. Once you've connected GitHub, we also only support GitHub, you'll immediately see your PR. So Buzz runs in the background, so there's nothing else you really need to set up. The setup time is like a minute, and then you'll enjoy your really smart notifications and that overview immediately. So feel free to try it out if you're using this stack. And if you're not, but you're curious, you're more than welcome to reach out to me or follow us on Twitter. As I said, we have a blog where we post bi-weekly or monthly. We also have bi-weekly emails with all the updates, etc. So that's how you can follow us and learn more about what we do with Flutter. Thank you. Do you have any questions before we call it a night? There's one up there. Maybe we can work without the mic, I don't know.
Then we don't get any sound.
Sorry? How I'm gonna make money? That's a really good question. So we're actually a B2B company. So we currently sell this to tech teams and engineering managers and CTOs. But usually it's the developers that pick this up and spread it within their team, and then they kind of do some of the selling at least for us. So we don't want the users themselves to pay, but their bosses may pay us. That's the plan. I don't know who's to go first.
I can take a question. Meanwhile, I'm walking. Since you're a Dart in the whole stack, is everyone a front-end and back-end developer? Like, are everyone full stack?
Yeah, so actually I think what Rafa and Bart would say is that they're front-end developers, but they became a full stack when they joined Bus because we have Dart in the entire stack. So that's the case. They're solving it, both.
Which desktop operating systems do you support right now? Is it only Mac, or does it work also like on Windows or Linux? And how do they look like actually? Because the top navigation notification thing is very stuck to Mac, and I was curious now.
Yeah, super good question. So the reason why I'm only fronting Mac here is because we were a Mac app only until 2 weeks ago. So and that was really smooth actually. Of course, there were different things. We had some issues with our second window, like with let's see if I can show this now. I swear, I swear this app works. I don't know what's happening. Yeah. Okay, I can't show you that screen, but back to your question. We have we have both macOS and Windows. Windows since 2 weeks. That app sits in the taskbar, so in the lower right corner, and it works the same way. That's where the notifications will show, but it's not the exact same experience, of course. But it was really smooth. We had to do some modifications for Windows, and we were super stoked to launch on Windows, and then the first question we got was how about Linux? We're like, yeah, I know. So someday we'll be there too, but we don't really know how when or how exactly that's going to look like. Oh, yeah, okay, so that's working. Let's see if I can actually show you how it is to work joining that meeting. Oh, now I joined it here. So that's the 2 screens, but maybe it's... No. This always happens, right?
Is it compatible with every CI/CD solution?
No, it's not compatible with any at the moment, but we're looking into it. Okay. So, it's with GitHub. It's the only solution.
Like corporate solutions like GitLab or
others. So that once again, I think that's the next step. But the perk of kind of integrating with a lot of tools and being the layer on top is that we can, it's so smooth for users that use GitHub. They just connect it and then it starts working out of the box. And we're not really asking you to change any of your processes. You don't need to do PRs in a different way or review it and change your review process. But of course, we get limited to always having to, there's always the next integration. I think what we would look into next would probably be GitLab. But there's Bitbucket, and so the list is long.
Maybe a following question regarding GitHub. Does it support enterprise integration?
The way it works is that you install it on you log in to your account, and then you install it on your organization. So all you need is to have a GitHub organization to install it on, and we're currently building it for personal use as well. Because after the Serverbot keynote, we got a lot of developers excited to use it for personal use, but we had focused initially on just business because, we started building this this summer. So, and we're a team of 5, so you guys know you can't snap your fingers. Yeah.
What's it like releasing for desktops? When you are constantly pushing out features, do you have a way of pushing that out, or?
Yeah, we didn't at first, and that wasn't sustainable. Right now we use some. I didn't build this myself. I actually am not a developer. I need to tell you that, but Sparkle is called, and that's super smooth. And we've used something similar for Windows. And that just allows us to update the app. Let's see if this, so basically we can check for updates, and then it does this, and it says, oh, I can install an update, and then it loads, and then I relaunch it. But we can also update in the background. unless people do this. Yeah. Okay. Yay! So yeah, that's my stand-up, but I'm a little late. No, it was just for show. Okay, thank you. Oh, okay. Yeah, go. That's you. Oh.
I was just wondering if you store data, like if you're working in a company and you want to use this, how much data should you be afraid of getting stored in a place that is not the company?
Yeah, that's a really good, really legit question. So we have minimized what access we have to, we read to on GitHub to the minimum. And we only have read access. We don't store anything related to GitHub. And when it comes to the calendar, I believe we store it for like 30 seconds and then we read it again. And we don't, so the only thing that we store from GitHub is the user token.
Yeah, and you store it in the state, or do you send anything to backend to store it?
No, the only thing we store in the server is the user token. Nothing else goes through the backend.
Okay.
That's why, for example, at this point, like we can't, we can work around this, and we're going to work around it. But like if I click on Bart here, like it takes some time before we go and fetch, we call to get the PRs. I want this to go faster, but we decided to not store it, which for good reasons.
Yeah, I think it's.
Yeah. No, especially since we are B2B, we need to also, work for our customers' security and on their kind of requirements. So.
Awesome too.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh. Okay. Thanks a lot, and thanks for having me.
You have a microphone there. Om det finns plats på min dator kan du lägga den där.
Jag kan ta det. Tack.
Okay, I just have to say wow on both of these presentations. When we started this meetup before the pandemic, and like app showcases back then was someone had made like a Hello World app. And now we have like a bank app and super polished developer tools. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I'm so impressed to see that and how far we come as a Flutter community in Stockholm. Talking of that, if there's someone else here that want to showcase your app, maybe it's tough off this. Anything else you want to do? Make sure to join us on Slack. You can use that QR code there. And that allows us to keep in touch between the meetups and also get more information about what's happening. Next meetup will be at the Devo team, and it's on March 22nd, so it's about a month from now. There will be two super interesting talks, then a little bit shorter talks, I think. And yeah, the bar is open till 9 p.m. So hang around and we can have a chat. And is there anything else who has something I missed? Then I think we're good to go. Thanks for tonight. So awesome.